Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Grace Ma. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Health chief says it's in the best interest of Hong Kong to expand usage of LeaveHomeSafe app. Government projects a much smaller fiscal deficit following months of bumper revenue. An Iraqi prime minister survives assassination plot after a drone exploded at his residence. The government may soon clamp down on non-vaccinated civil servants by requiring them to get tested more frequently, despite the city recording just one more imported case today. Meanwhile, Health Minister Sophia Chen said it is of Hong Kong's best interest to extend usage of the LeaveHomeSafe app. Isaac Lee reports.
With virtually zero COVID infections in the past few months, speculation is increasing on when Hong Kong can resume quarantine-free travel with the mainland.
嗰個商討咧就係都係非常之有建設性嘅。
Speaking on radio this morning, Health Chief Sophia Chen said a virtual meeting between SAR and mainland officials last Tuesday yielded very constructive results. She once again hinted that future cross-border travelers must voluntarily hand over personal information to the relevant mainland authorities. The information will be collected through the LeaveHomeSafe app, which records places users had visited. But the recent mandatory usage for the app at government premises has already inconvenienced many people, mostly the elderly and the underprivileged. Chen called for everyone's understanding, but insisted the government's direction of expanding the mandate remains unchanged. That means diners at Type B restaurants may soon no longer be able to manually fill in their personal information.
Using LeaveHomeSafe is good for the general prevention and control measures and can help with the general control of the epidemic in terms of contact tracing and also in terms of self-protection. So it is of the best interest of the entire society to extend the use of LeaveHomeSafe in more premises.
Meanwhile, high-risk citizens, such as medics and immunocompromised patients, can start receiving a third COVID shot starting on Thursday. Civil Service Secretary Patrick Nip said 35,000 people have already signed up for a booster dose. The point man on the city's vaccination program said more measures are in the pipeline to boost uptake. This includes requiring non-vaccinated civil servants to get tested every week instead of every 14 days. Isaac Lee, HKIBC.
While Hong Kong will record a fiscal deficit for the third straight year, it will be far lower than the $102 billion originally estimated. That's according to Financial Chief Paul Chen, who attributed the revision to bumper revenue from stamp duties and land premium. When Hong Kong registered a record deficit of $258 billion in 2020-21, it sparked concerns of depleting fiscal reserves. That is especially after authorities expected the city to remain in the red for 5 more years. But Financial Secretary Paul Chen said things are finally looking up. He noted the economy has been steadily recovering, riding on strong exports as global activities resumed. The stable local COVID situation also boosted consumer sentiment, while the bullish property and stock markets led to higher income from stamp duties. Even developers were more willing to spend on land sales and premiums, he added, with premium revenue exceeding $40 billion as of last month. In all, higher than expected government revenue from the past months will drive down the deficit, which he said will be far lower than the $102 billion originally estimated for 2021-22. Although the public covers may take less of a hit, the financial chief did warn of latent risks. He said the future remains uncertain after a surge in recurrent expenditure over the past 5 years. Other welfare measures will only be reflected in future budgets, such as the expansion of the $2 transport concession scheme to cover citizens aged 60 or above and relaxing the eligibility for old age living allowance. That said, Chen pledged to lower the wealth gap by sharing the fruits of economic prosperity with grassroots residents. Authorities have continued to crack down on smuggling syndicates operating along the western shores of the new territories. In the latest police operation, $25 million worth of speedboats and parts were seized at a container yard in Longkutan. A record 57 outboard motors were taken in. Police believed the vessels were to be modified to smuggle goods across the border. The modified speedboats could sail up to 60 nautical miles per hour. Officers are hunting down a suspected illegal immigrant whose identity document was found in the yard. The editor-in-chief of online news outlet Stan News has resigned, citing family reasons. Chung Poi-kun expressed gratitude to readers for their support over the years. His position will be temporarily taken over by Vice Editor-in-Chief Patrick Lam. Chung is married to Chan Poi-men, the former associate publisher of the now-defunct Apple Daily. She is accused of violating the national security law and remains remanded since July. The New Year's Eve fireworks will be scrapped for the third straight year. The tourism board will instead rein in the new year with an outdoor concert, although you need to be really lucky to get a ticket. Isaac Lee reports.
In what has become a tradition, tens of thousands of citizens gather on both sides of Victoria Harbour every New Year's Eve to usher in the next year. But the joyful scenes were missing the past 2 years, as social unrest and the COVID pandemic forced celebrations off the streets. The tourism board is bringing back the festivities this year, but in a revamped format. While the fireworks display remains suspended, a concert featuring local pop stars will be held at West Kowloon Cultural Districts. Attendance is capped at 3,000 people, with tickets to be dished out for free via a lucky draw. There are strings attached too. Adult attendees must be fully vaccinated, while those between 12 and 17 must receive at least one shot. Tickets are not transferable, and use of the LeaveHomeSafe app is required upon entry. Those eligible can sign up online from November the 15th for a chance to meet their idols. The tourism board said the extravaganza will cost $17 million, similar to staging a fireworks display. The show is one of few large-scale events approved by the government in the past year. The annual Wine and Dine Festival, which began last week, was transformed into a combination of online programs and tasting sessions at bars and restaurants. Others were scrapped altogether, most notably the Oxfam Trail Walker, originally scheduled this month. Isaac Lee, HKIBC.
For Kittens, who allegedly hitched a ride to Hong Kong via a cargo plane from Singapore, are now in good hands. Authorities say they will be up for adoption after serving quarantine. A Singapore airline staff alerted authorities after discovering the kittens wandering around the airport's cargo terminal last night. It is believed that they arrived with a cargo flight, but it is not known how they went on board. The Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department said the cats are in good shape. They will be passed on to animal welfare groups to seek a foster home after passing quarantine and health checks. Overseas, Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi said he was fine after narrowly escaping an assassination attempt. At least 6 people from his security team were injured, while the United States condemned the attack. Sarah Wong reports.
The distance between Mustafa al-Kadhimi and death was razor thin this morning. In an assassination attempt, a drone laden with explosives targeted the Iraqi Prime Minister's residence in the capital, Baghdad. Al-Kadhimi escaped unharmed, but several of his security guards were injured by the blast. The 53-year-old quickly announced on social media that he's fine and called for calm and restraint, but he resorted to a more combative tone in a speech on national television hours later.
إلى أهلي وشعبي في كل مكان
Cowardly rocket and drone attacks build neither homelands nor a future. The Prime Minister exclaimed, "We work towards building our country through respecting the state and its institutions." The U.S. State Department has condemned what it called an apparent act of terrorism and offered to help Iraqi investigators. The attack came amid the latest wave of violent protests in Baghdad, where one person was killed and dozens of others injured on Friday. Supporters of Shia Muslim militias rejected last month's general election results that cost the pro-Iran factions seats in parliament. Some militia leaders publicly blamed al-Khatimi for the deadly clashes after police opened fire at protesters who decried election rigging. A former intelligence chief, al-Khatimi was named by President Burhan Salih to become prime minister in May last year. He entered office with a pledge to solve Iraq's economic and political predicament. Sarah Wong, HKIBC.
At least 8 people were killed and dozens of others injured in a rap concert in the U.S. state of Texas. Survivors described scenes of desperation as they fled the stampede, while authorities have opened a criminal investigation. Sarah Wong reports.
America is reeling in shock after a concert featuring rap star Travis Scott took a fatal turn in Houston on Friday night local time. Several people, including teenagers, were killed after the large crowd surged towards the stage during the performance. Some recalled their horrific escape.
Like, there are some people who were just laughing at those of us who were like screaming to get out because they thought it was funny, and they're not realizing that this is terror. Got punched in the jaw, got punched in the back of my head. A lot of my friends have bruises. It was really bad. A lot of people lost their shoes because they were getting stepped out of them.
And like people kept pushing and shoving, and more people kept collapsing into but that was like the craziest I've seen. Meanwhile, you have someone holding it's like an American Red Cross, like the flag, like, hey, we need help here. And like they can't get nowhere because he just kept performing.
Authorities have launched a criminal probe as unverified reports alleged that the audience was injected with drugs.
Let me caution people not to buy into the rumors, okay? Because there are a lot of rumors, but nothing is left off the table.
So far, police have arrested at least 25 people over trespassing, possession of marijuana, and public intoxication. Sarah Wong, HKIBC.
On to the weather now. A cold front is moving across the coast of southern China tonight. Temperatures will drop to 17 degrees tomorrow morning and a couple degrees lower in rural areas, staying fine and dry in the coming days. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Sunday night. Join us for more news at 10. I'm Grace Ma. Thanks for watching. Good night.